put your questions in the chat. We'll get to them later today, later in the meeting, but we'll avoid all that background noise we could get. Next, I'd like to introduce, he probably needs no introduction, but Mr. Dave Borger, extraordinary community volunteer, extraordinary retired man. Is that pretty good to say about Dave? But I'm going to introduce Dave. Dave today has a special announcement and a special a thank you to all our sponsors. So Dave, take it away.
Thank you, Bernie. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. I was supposed to be starting a screen share, but it will not start. Wants me to try again later. So we're not going to worry about that at this moment, but I have been asked to talk about the sponsors for this event, as well as all of the programming that we have at the St. Cloud Area Chamber of Commerce. The Government Affairs Committee plans all of the events and looks to the support and investment of some of our leading civic-minded organizations to help make that programming possible. Centricare Health, Arvig Media, Xcel Energy, Batteries Plus Bulbs, Chapman Wealth Management, eSig Lounge, Velocity Public Affairs, Anderson Trucking, Geocom, Burnix, Premier Real Estate Services, GLT Architects, KNSI, oops, somebody got something going here, good. KNSI Leighton Enterprises, Mayo Clinic Ambulance, St. Cloud, Quinlivan and Hughes, WSB and Associates, The Boot Shack, and K. Johnson Construction are our underwriters for government affairs programming at the St. Cloud Area Chamber of Commerce. And so we ask you to join us in thanking them for their investment in our programming in general and this virtual session in particular.
Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate that. And we thank all our sponsors as well. We couldn't do this without you. It's very obvious. And so thank you for being here all today, the sponsors, and thank you for sponsoring today and other events. Next, we're going to do another general housekeeping item, which is I'm going to introduce to you, again, I don't think he needs any introduction, but Jim Beck, the owner of Barnyard, right? Yeah. So I'm going to introduce Jim Beck to you. He has a very, very special announcement, and it's going to be really inspiring. And take it away, Jim. It's up to you.
Thank you. I'm Jim Beck. I'm the owner of Modern Barnyard, and I'm the current chair of the Chamber Diversity Council. And a little bit about the Diversity Council. We do a diversity award every year for a chamber member or business. And here's a little bit of the criteria that we use. The St. Cloud Area Chamber of Commerce supports an inclusive business community by encouraging all chamber members to advocate, enhance, and promote equity of opportunity in all of their business practices. Our vision is a thriving business community that prospers through being inclusive of all people. The Chamber's Diversity Council recognition acknowledges the exceptional efforts of area businesses and representatives whose visible efforts foster great appreciation, advancement, and celebration of diversity and inclusiveness in the workplace. Career Solutions is dedicated to building a multicultural business environment that is free from bias and discrimination. Their diverse staff are encouraged to celebrate their differences and attend other community diversity trainings on a regular basis. Under Tammy Berry's leadership, Career Services works daily to break down employment barriers. Community members age 14 plus can utilize their comprehensive workforce development resources to acquire skills, training, and experience to achieve family-sustaining wages. Businesses in need of employees can receive hiring help, as well as customized cultural training for current staff to improve overall orientation and integration of diverse backgrounds. Tammy Berry, Executive Director of Career Services, is being awarded the St. Cloud Area Chamber of Commerce Diversity Award for her leadership in promoting and celebrating equal opportunity in the Central Minnesota business community. Congratulations to Tammy and Career Solutions on this wonderful award. We must also say that Tammy was nominated multiple times for this award. last year and this year. So again, congratulations from all of us at the Chamber Diversity Council.
And ladies and gentlemen, I present this virtually. Tammy, I see you up on the screen, and actually I'm kind of emotional and got goosebumps that I get to give this to you and give this to you virtually. I can't wait to hug you and give it to you. I'm sure they'll mail it to you, but I definitely will have a glass of wine with you and this award, and we'll distance all three of us. The ward can go over here, I'll go over there, and we don't have to sit together. But Tammy, you've been a great friend, a great supporter of the community and diversity, and I would ask everyone a virtual applause for Tammy Berry for this award. Thank you, Tammy, for everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, I can't take the credit myself. I've got an awesome team, and they've really taken the charge to go out and find ways to help community and work for diversity. So I really do appreciate the award and the recognition, and I can't wait to share it with my team. Thank you.
You're welcome, and it's very well deserved. Thank you to your team for us as well. And Jim Beck, thank you for the presentation and everything you do with the Diversity Council as well. Thank you, Jim. Next, one more last housekeeping before we get into the serious stuff is Gail Ivers is doing the most important job, at least for me, and that is she is the timer today. So Gail Ivers is the timer, and she will explain to you how the timing will work. Gail, take it away.
So before I jump into that, I do want to let you know that the plan right now is for Tammy to receive the physical award in person at one of her future board meetings. Teresa's on the board, and she and some of the Diversity Council members will be attending that so that she can present it to Tammy and to the Career Solutions staff. So I'm timing today, and we practiced this yesterday, and nobody could hear the timer, so I wanted to practice so you could all our elected officials could hear this. Let me know that you can hear it, and you also know what you're going to be listening for. The first couple of questions you'll get 2 minutes, and then after that it's only 1. So here's what it sounds like. Everybody hear that? Give me a thumbs up. Okay.
Yes.
That's what you're going to get. That's all I've got. Thanks.
So with that said, let's go into how the questions and timing will occur during this session. There will be 2 different sessions for questions. The first session will be 2 questions we have developed with the advisory board, and the second session will be questions from the attendees. So all of you out there in the attendees, please develop your own questions, put them in the chat, and Laura will be writing those down and grouping the same ones together that need to be asked. But if you would just put them in the chat, we will get to them during the second portion of our Q&A. That's for the attendees. So as I alluded to, legislators, this is when you're going to start all the powerful responses you're going to give us today. We're going to start with 2 questions. These first 2 questions, you will have 2 minutes to respond. 2 minutes for these first 2 questions. I will call out your name so we don't step on one another. So I will call out your name and you will answer these 2 questions. The first question that you will answer is, please tell us your name. Please tell us who you represent, where area you represent. And please tell us what was the most important outcome for you, most important outcome for you during this legislative session. So with that first question, you have 2 minutes to answer, and I'm going to start with Tama Tice, Representative Tama Tice.
Good morning. My name is Tama Tice. I represent District 14A, and that's the west and south part of St. Cloud, Way Park, St. Augusta. And probably the most important outcome this year was once COVID hit and we were back home, we were doing our teleconference calls, and I was on the I was the Republican lead for the homeless part of the bill that got passed, and it was very, very interesting, a very good learning curve in figuring things out. And I was really pleased that some of the suggestions that I made got included in the bills, and we saw it. That was one of the first things that got passed off the House floor and Senate once we got a chance to do something on the House floor. What was really interesting was just trying to figure out, and I know Senator Howe will say this, it's really hard to do these things when you can't see people and read the body language and things, and you don't know when to, when you're supposed to talk and do all that. So even just getting used to doing things, teleconferencing, was really very strange, when you're used to doing everything sitting in a room across the table from each other. So it was really challenging at first. And make no mistake, we were still on the phone till midnight, starting at 6, 7 and going till midnight. So just a very different learning curve in how to get things done, but I was very pleased. Absolutely so proud of my community, because when I talked to President Wacker, she had said that she had talked to Melissa at the county in HS, and those two had gone together and talked and decided that there was a empty dorm that they could use for homeless if they needed to have anybody quarantining.
Do you want to just finish your thought there? Did you have one just to finish a thought?
No, basically it was. They just had it set up for quarantining and for folks who are homeless to have a place to go.
Perfect, great. Thank you, Tama, and thank you for everything you do for us in our community and being a legislator for us. Next up will be Senator Jerry Ralph. 2 minutes, Jerry.
Well, thank you. I represent St. Cloud, St. Augusta, Wade Park, Haven, and Minden townships. I guess what was the most important outcome is I guess we survived. This was an absolutely surrealistic situation. I commented to one of our engrossing secretaries the last day that I felt that I could drop through a wormhole and was in an alternate universe. It's been difficult. Tam put her finger right on one of the issues, and that is the inability to basically sit down with people you knew on both sides of the aisle and try and actually smile and get something done. But I think the fact that we're actually able to move some legislation in the circumstances we were in is important. We are a divided legislature, the only one in the country. And we actually did manage to do some good things. I think that I reflect on the fact that we did provide leadership. I'm going to toot my own whistle a little bit right here. Back in early March, late February, I realized that we weren't doing anything about this COVID thing. And so I introduced the first bill to begin the process, to get money into the Department of Health so that they could begin to prepare for a COVID response. That bill was introduced on a Monday, was committeed on a Thursday, passed on a Monday, and signed on that Tuesday. So in about a week, we got that job done. That was the first 20 million that got things going. So I'm pretty pleased that we were able, in a bipartisan fashion, that bill passed with no dissenting votes. Both times. It had to go go around the circle once. There were some changes that were put in at the House, and we accepted those and redid the job. So that's basically where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, good stuff, and thank you for what you do for us as well as a legislator. Next up will be Representative Dan Wolgamott. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, thank you, and good morning, Chamber. Great to see everybody, even if it's just virtually. Yeah, there's no doubt about it that the COVID-19 pandemic has changed everything about our way of life in Minnesota, and the Minnesota legislature was no exception. And so this 2020 session will, I think, really go down in history as the COVID-19 response session, in which, as Jerry and Tama, I think really accurately mentioned, we came together, we set aside our partisan differences, and we did what we could to help the state deal with this pandemic. Yep, the most important outcome is what we did to respond to COVID-19. And absolutely, as Jerry mentioned, we enacted the COVID-19 fund that was able to purchase critical equipment and supplies for our state's response. Another bill that I'm really proud of that I chief authored in the House, and Senator Howe was the chief author over in the Senate. We had a bill for frontline workers to be able to have access to workers' compensation benefits if they get COVID-19 in the line of duty. So standing up for our firefighters and police officers, paramedics, EMTs, corrections officers, healthcare workers, childcare providers. We got that done, and that's something I think the whole state can be proud of. We also did things to support our business community and provide some loans so to help get through the tough times that we've seen because of this pandemic. As Tama mentioned, housing security, we've done some food security. We've really, I think, as Jerry mentioned, it's not easy. It's never easy working in a divided government. It's really not easy when we have to do everything over a conference call. But I'm really proud of how we came together and we helped Minnesota deal with this COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I'm sure we'll get to, there's still a lot of work that we have ahead of us, but I'm really proud of what we've done in the past 2 months to prepare our state and respond to this pandemic.
Thank you, Representative Dan, and thank you for everything you do in the legislature as well. Really appreciate it. Next up to bat is Representative Lisa Demuth, and I know how to pronounce her name because she's corrected me several times. Right, Lisa? 2 minutes.
It's like Joe Namath. That's how I remember.
Yep.
And so do I, Representative Dan, so do I.
Just like Joe Namath, and he looks quite different. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see all of you. I wish, again, like has already been said, that we were in person, but it's great to have this opportunity to talk. I represent the areas of Cold Spring, Rockville, Richmond, Kimball, St. Joe, Paynesville, a little bit of Eden Valley, and all the townships surrounding there. My 2 minutes would be up if I read through that list. But this was an interesting session, just finishing up my freshman year. Very different than all of us, both business owners and legislators. This has been very different. I think the thing that I am most proud of is at the end of our 19th session, I was appointed to the Family Child Care Task Force, knowing that we have a child care shortage in our area, which definitely affects all of our businesses. It's something that was something very close to my heart. If we can't have proper child care for our kids, we can't get our employees to work. So that work was done last summer into the fall. And then during the COVID crisis, as that hit, I was appointed as the Republican lead for the first COVID package for the emergency child care grants. And what we did, working with another House member and 2 other senators, we put together part of that package, which was $30 million to appoint to child care. And that could be both family child care and center-based child care, knowing that we needed child care for our Tier 1 workers. First of all, is how those people that were going to be applying for the grants, they could apply for the grant if they were going to prioritize space for Tier 1 workers. And then they could also take in other children that maybe weren't Tier 1 workers. The grants were approved, and if they received them, it was $4,500 for family child care and up to $15,000 for the center-based because of the largeness. That money was not enough. We realized that it is going to need to be more to keep those standing up and going. But I was really proud to work on that, and with that, I will end my time right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lisa. We appreciate everything you do for us as well as a legislator, and thanks again for your comments. The next one up, I didn't recognize, he was on the Zoom for about 3 minutes before someone said hello to him, because I did not recognize him, but I think he's making a statement with his beard. Senator Jeff Howe, welcome. Welcome, and you have 2 minutes at this point too.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm Senator Jeff Howe. I represent District 13, which includes everything that Lisa just, Representative Demuth just said, all that, and Holding Ford, Sauk Rapids, and Sartell. and the surrounding townships there. I will tell you that out of 8 sessions down there, this has to go down as probably my worst experience in the legislature yet. COVID-19 really upset the apple cart for us. I had a lot of good legislation I thought was going to move through, stuff with the wedding barns and all the rest of that good stuff. And it basically got side railed by the way the virus and how the legislature had to react to that. So very disappointed in that. Some of the things like Representative Wolgamott said, that the legislation that we both chief authored in both the House and the Senate with regards to first responders and golly, I'm having a brain cramp here. The workers' compensation for those was a very important piece of legislation. I did not. It was kind of different because as I worked on that, it ended up being someone else that actually got the final language, but they allowed me to be the chief author yet in the Senate, which I appreciated because I did work very hard on the first rendition of that bill. One of the things that I thought that was very striking to me is that the legislature really, once the governor put down his emergency powers, we weren't very involved anymore anyway in the Senate. He kind of took the lead once he had the money, and we were very limited. We could pass things between the legislature, but as far as information and being able to change how the governor did things, we weren't involved in the decision-making process. I was pretty disappointed in that. One thing that we did get done, the transportation bill got done, which I think was very important. And a very important piece of that was the study for the trooper bill. The troopers right now, by my calculations, are 17% but behind their counterparts in law enforcement. They used to be the top paid law enforcement agency in the state. That's no longer the case. We did get a study done by the Office of Legislative Auditor, which hopefully will give us good information as to how much of an increase those troopers need to be competitive with their law enforcement counterparts. Thank you.
Great. I thank you very much, Senator Jeff. Again, I did not recognize you when you first came on, but you look marvelous. So,
I'm waiting to get rid of this beard.
well, thank you. And thank you for everything you do for the legislature as well. And thank you for your comments. 2 minutes go by pretty fast, don't they? Next is Representative Sandra Erickson. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for this chance to visit with everyone. I'm Sandra Erickson, and I represent 15A, which is east and north of the St. Cloud area, all of Mille Lacs County, parts of Sherburne and Kanabec counties. I'm the minority lead in education, and I would say that my accomplishment this session, this very difficult session, was being able to communicate so well with my constituency. I think like many other legislators, I received hundreds, maybe thousands of emails, phone calls, texts from constituents concerned about the closure. I was very pleased to be able to help so many parents wade through learning at home, this new way of distance learning, and all the challenges they faced. We did no new spending in education, but we did provide for some flexible fund transfers. And I thank the Senate for helping us through a huge amount of policy that the House majority wanted to pass on, 9 mandates among them. And the Senate was able to stay with the House minority and stop some of that, because this is not the time to be adding mandates to our K-12 system. This is a time to be looking at continuity of learning. So being able to help my constituents, especially small business, and talk to my superintendents and other school staff, as well as parents, was really satisfying to me, because this was their calling for help and my ability to respond to that and give them some solutions. Many emails sent to the governor's staff to try to solve some of these issues that we're facing. And as I said when I introduced myself before everyone got on, I'm in Park Rapids area for a few days helping my family who owns a restaurant in the area try to get ready for patio dining. So what a job. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sandra. We appreciate everything you do and the sincerity of dealing with what you have to do with your constituents as well as everyone else. So thank you, and thank you for your responses. And last but certainly not least, we have Representative Tim O'Driscoll. Welcome, Tim.
He's muted.
You're muted,
You're
Tim.
muted.
I am now. I was just doing a dry run on my opening line when I was muted. That's all. Thank you, Bernie, for the opportunity to be able to be here at the invitation. A couple of things for consideration here. When we went back to the legislative session in 2020, we went back planning to play offense, getting some things done, getting some priorities, handling a bonding bill. What ended up happening is we got there and quickly we had to shift from the offense to the defense because of the pandemic that we didn't go looking for. COVID-19 found us in this nation as well as Minnesota. And early on in the session, there was an agreement between all four caucuses, the two majority caucuses, the DFL House and the majority and the Senate, the GOP, and then the respective minority caucuses had agreed that there would be movement on bills that would have to go through the legislature and go to the governor that had broad bipartisan support. And I'm very pleased that my colleagues and I were able to make that happen. Some earlier had said, gee, you know, this is the toughest session that I've had since I've been here. This is the second toughest session that I've had since I've been here. 2011 with the $6 billion shortfall was the most difficult session when I was a freshman. Having said that, I want to provide you with a little bit of a scenario as to what the state of Minnesota is experiencing. One of the things that you may find is an individual might want to go out and buy a home. They've got their eye on doing some spending, want to put a mortgage on that home and be able to finance it over a period of time. All of a sudden you start looking, you know, your paycheck and it's cut in half. And that is exactly what happened to the state of Minnesota. Tax receipts have dramatically plummeted. We went from a $1.5 billion projected surplus to right now at a $2.5 billion shortfall. Quickly, everyone realized that we were probably going to be going into overtime and that prudent things would be not to do spending unnecessarily and to do a bonding bill until we had a better idea of what the state's finances would be. And that will come later on. We get a more credible revenue number into the latter part of the spring, early part of the summer. I talk about a credible revenue number stabilization. I'll have a lot more to say about that and other bills as we get moving on here, but I wanted to give you a little perspective here this morning. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Representative Tim. I do appreciate it. I've known you a long time, and you lay things out pretty black or white and very transparent, like most you legislators do. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next, we are going to the chat room. The fun thing about this is I'm in the room with Laura at the Chamber of Commerce. So I get thumbs up, I get thumbs down, then I get kind of disappointed that I get a thumbs down, but then I get a thumbs up. So we're making a schedule shift here. So bear with us with the flexibility. We're going to go to the chat room with Laura, and she's got a question, and this will be what we call the speed round, correct? All right, so we're going right into the speed round. I had another question for you that would have taken longer, but we're gonna do some flexibility. We might come back to it. Stay tuned. So we're going to what we're calling the lightning round. The lightning round is going to contain questions from the chat. And those questions are coming from the attendees. And the lightning round will give you 1 minute for a response. So keep that in mind. Keep on your toes. But the questions are coming from our own constituencies, your own constituencies, the chamber members. And we thought we'd get into those already. So 1 minute for each of you. I will call you out and then you answer the question. So Laura, if you ask the question, I'll continue to call out the legislators.
All right, our first question. Congress, the Federal Reserve, or the SBA sent the Minnesota legislature approximately $60 million this spring to distribute to small businesses and micro businesses to assist with COVID-19 disaster relief and recovery. Why didn't the legislator act on this? What specific actions will each of you take to fast track this legislation into a special session so that central Minnesota businesses can apply? Apply for and secure these funds for economic recovery.
Everybody got that question? I know it's very long-winded, probably a minute in itself.
Yeah, I'd like to speak on that.
All right, I'll call you first, Jerry. Jerry's first.
And the reason I'm jumping in here is I was sitting in the room during the session while the negotiations were taking place on much of this particular piece of legislation. And we actually have an agreement, is my understanding, to move this forward. The problem was it was reached at 10:30 on Sunday night. We couldn't get it over to the House and back to the Senate in time. I also understand there may be some alternatives to try and getting this done, to try to get this done even before the special session. And so in answer to that question, it's a very good question. We have an agreement, and I'm hoping that we'll go forward with it.
Excellent. Thank you. Great news. Representative Taylor Tice.
Unfortunately, I don't think the House Republicans really knew a whole lot about it. We weren't kept with a lot of the negotiations that were happening. And so it was kind of one of those things we just hadn't talked about in length, which is really unfortunate. We just kind of followed the lead of the Senate because basically we weren't getting a lot of information, but that was the only place we were getting information from.
Great feedback. Thank you. Representative Dan Waldemont.
My understanding of the situation is exactly how Jerry explained it, and I have nothing different to add than what Jerry said.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. Representative Lisa Demuth, do you have anything to add?
I won't repeat what's already been said, but I look forward to working on this as we go back into special session and addressing it.
Great, thank you. Senator Jeff Howe, do you have anything to add?
I just look forward to, and I'm very confident that we'll get it done during special session.
Thank you. Representative Sandra Erickson, do you have anything to add?
Well, most important to me is that all legislators are engaged in these decisions, and that's what I look forward to doing during special session is everyone working together instead of some being left out. Thank you.
Thank you. And Representative Tim O'Driscoll, is there something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I've got nothing new. Let's move on to the next question.
Great. I love that. I love those ideas. Laura, next question.
Next question. The Minnesota legislature adjourned without resolving a capital bonding bill. One of the concerns addressed early on is that the governor is asking for too large of a bonding bill, $2 billion. How much bonding debt is Minnesota currently carrying, and how old or far back does this debt go?
We're going to start with Representative Sandra Erickson.
Well, I know that the present debt service is, I believe, about $80 million. And I'm not quite sure how far back it goes, but with a $2 billion proposal from the governor, the debt service, I'm sure, would rise to about $150 million per year, and that would be ongoing indefinitely. So these are huge challenges for us.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Jeff Howe.
Well, I will say that what's disappointing on the bonding bill is the Senate had that bonding bill passed, and not the $2 billion, but a $1 billion bonding bill we had passed until the governor called up some Democrat senators and told them not to vote for it. So that bonding bill failed by 3 votes in the Senate. It was a $1 billion bonding bill. I will say that I think that was much more reasonable. It's just a little bit above what we had budgeted for debt service. I think those bonding bills go out about 20 years. So I'm sure that we have, if you go back 20 years, we still have some of those bondings that we're paying for. So that's the reality of it. We should get a bonding bill done. I'm just disappointed that we didn't get it done during regular session like we should have.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Representative Tim O'Driscoll.
Without getting too wonky on this, every biennium we pay off bonds because there's a duration of 20 years. And a $2 billion bonding bill that was proposed by the governor would have put $88 million each year for 2 years, for the next 20 years, I should say 2 years for the biennium, for the next 10 bienniums or 20 years on the books. And with revenues falling, that wasn't a realistic number. Central Minnesota actually might be the beneficiary of a late bonding bill coming to the table. As some of you may be aware, the city of Sartell has put in a late request because of some development that's planned in the Sartell community in the medical arts campus area in Sartell. They're able to unlock $100 million of new medical clinic and other type of medical facility construction if they can get roads into that area to be able to service that area. I know that the city at my request has engaged Representative Ogamont on this, and I know he's backing this. I'm backing it. Senator Howe is carrying it. And that bonding request of about $10 million, $10 million will unlock $100 million worth of construction jobs and support our medical industry. So the fact that the bonding bill didn't get done is a prudent thing from a dollars and cents revenue standpoint. Where do we land? And the final part of that is Central Minnesota could benefit from a late bonding bill coming to the table.
Great, thank you. Representative Tice?
Thanks. When I think it was my second term, I was on the bonding committee, and it was really interesting in how we figured debt service. And we were really fortunate to have Representative Bob Vogel from Elko New Market, who's a banker. And he always questioned how we figured out our debt service and never figured that we had an accurate number of what was happening. So that has always been part of what I think about is, these are the numbers they're saying, but is it really figured correctly? And especially in this time, I just think it was too much, and was really excited to hear what the Senate had going. And even though I really didn't get to claw into it, was really excited at least that it was passed through the Senate, and thought we could do it in the House, because the bonding bill originates in the House. So it was kind of a backwards way of doing things, but I fully expect that we'll see it, and we'll get it passed when we get back.
Great, thank you. Senator Jerry Ralph, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. First of all, I'm going to maybe go a little off the ranch here, but first, there was a question in the chat room what the total debt is. I believe it's about $16.755 billion in our total debt load. We do have a formula that's kind of followed, and I won't get into it, that kind of looks at revenues and budget and tries to set our total bonding debt based on that percentage. There's a little room. I think it's prudent that we be very careful with our dollars. That's been said. I do want to point out one thing, though, and that is that we're talking about getting money into the economy. Right now, we're sitting on $1.8 billion in money that came from the federal government. That money is supposed to go directly to the counties, towns, and cities. Right now, we can't get it there. We had a bill in the Senate that would have distributed it roughly on the same ratio as the money that went to Hennepin and Ramsey counties. They got their money directly. They have it. They got all of it. All of that money should go to the state, to the counties, towns, and cities. And that's something, we have a bill in the Senate that does that. We hope to get that done. But right now, I have to be very honest, it's being held up. And one of my colleague over there, the bearded one, made the point, there's your bonding bill. There's $1.8 billion that could be pumped right into the economy. So I hope we can bring that across the finish line here in June.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Representative Waldemar.
Well, I'm really proud to serve on the bonding committee in the House. So for the last year and a half, I've heard project after project after project after project. And it's clear that even before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, our state needed to pass a robust bonding bill that invested in our state's aging infrastructure. Now, with the economic downturn that's been caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, it's more important than ever that we use our borrowing power as a state to invest in Minnesota, to create jobs, to get people back to work, to invest in our infrastructure, and rebuild for the future. There are projects in these bills that can benefit our community, that can benefit central Minnesota for decades to come. I was really excited that in the House version of the bonding bill, I was able to secure some additional funding to take the next step of bringing the North Star commuter rail to St. Cloud. That's something that I've been proud to partner with the Chamber on. Additionally, we had funding for the municipal athletic complex and upgrades and renovations to that. Once we get sports going and events going, the MAC brings dollars to our community from all over the state. So that's true. We absolutely need to be smart about where we're putting our money. But these are great investments, and the return on those investments are going to create jobs for people, put people back to work, and make central Minnesota more economically competitive for years and years to come. So my hope is that we can continue having the conversation, continue working together, and get a bonding bill passed that meets those needs, makes bold investments in Minnesotans.
Great, thank you. And Representative Damuth, do you have anything to add?
I won't add to what's already been talked about, but I do look forward to working together with both from the House, with the Senate, and with our governor to come up with a package this year.
Great, thank you. Laura, next question?
Yeah, quickly, I just want to remind everyone that they can put additional questions into the chat. Don't be shy. Just type them in there. We're kind of going through that. As a bit of a follow-up question, some of you may have already seen it in the chat, regarding the topic that we were just answering. What, if anything, can we as taxpayers, voters, and business executives do to influence?
Okay, that's a tough one. That's a big question. So I'm going to start with Senator Jeff Howe.
Well, if that is to influence the process of the bonding bill, is that the question?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I would say that you need to contact the governor. You need to contact your legislators. Let them know where you're at. Contact the bonding chairs. Be vocal. Send those emails, make those phone calls, tell us where you're at and what projects are important to you. Let us know the size of the bonding bill you think we should do. We need to, I will tell you, I think that that's already been said, that we need to input that money going into the community and into our economy is vital, but we got to make it so it's good projects, infrastructure projects, and I think that's important. And I think that you need to be vocal on your communities and what's important to you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Representative Sandra Erickson, do you have anything to add?
Well, I would add this, that it's important that when you communicate with the governor and with the legislators, that you set a priority. Because roads and bridges, of course, are always important, as is infrastructure in regard to wastewater. And we need a lot of help in those areas across the state. Other than that, you know, the regional projects should be emphasized as well. So communicate with us and with the governor.
Great, thank you. Representative Tama Tice.
You know, there isn't a whole lot much more to say, but again, you know, just emails and such. I know they're still working on it because I'm still getting text messages. So it just always helps to throw your two cents in with it.
All right, thank you. Dan Wolgamott, do you have anything to add?
No, I especially thought what Senator House said was spot on.
Great, I like agreement. Senator Jerry Ralph, do you have something to add?
I agree with everything that's been said. I do sit on the Capital Investment Committee. Email me, talk to me. I need to know what people are interested in. We're going to hammer something out. I noticed in the chat room there was a question about updated list of prospective projects. Right now, what is available to the public is the actual text of both bonding bills, and you can actually go online and look them up. If anybody's interested, I'll get them the file numbers offline here. but that's right now the source. We're still working on it. And I think we have to be prudent on what we spend, but we have to be not only prudent, but we have to be very surgical, especially with the budgetary forecast that we're working with now.
Great, we'll probably circle back around to a little bit of that question again. Also then Representative DeMuth, anything to add?
Just the most important thing is when we hear from you, when we hear from constituents about priorities. And so I would echo what has already been said about contacting us, contacting the bonding chairs and then, or the capital investment and the bonding chairs and our governor. And I happen to have his information right on my desk all the time. So.
Great. And Representative O'Driscoll, anything to add?
Yes, I would again remind people that trying to influence the process, you do need to let this kind of work its course. We got to figure out our income situation in the state of Minnesota. We need to know when we hit bottom, and we need to start looking at doing some budget reductions and things to accommodate for a capital investment bill. So there are going to be trade-offs that are going to have to be experienced in this. Projects that I would like to see would be those that are hard asset, capital or state preservation of assets, prisons, school buildings, et cetera, as well as infrastructure projects, roads, bridges, and things that do have other economic stimulus behind it. In case I didn't mention before, pitching for the city of Sartell, they do have the ability to unlock $100 million worth of construction jobs, which are revenue, and those will lead to medical clinics, which are high-paying jobs. So that project is an extremely good investment for Central Minnesota right now.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. The chat questions have been exhausted a little bit, so please remember, if you have questions about if there's going to be a special session, bonding bills, or anything like that, put your chat in there and Laura can ask it. We're going back to a lengthy question, and this question will give you 3 minutes to answer because we really want to hear your thorough answer to this question. The first question that you answered, which was 2 minutes long, was about your outcomes that you got from the session. This question is more about what happened. So the question is, what was the #1 thing you worked on during the session that you wish would have happened? So something you worked on and you wish it would have happened. And I'm going to start with Senator Jeff Howe.
Wow, 2 first swings at the bat at the pitch. So.
Oh, sorry about that. I
no
guess
sweat.
I'm not looking at orders. I'm just picking people as I go.
Well,
You're not my favorite, believe me.
There's a couple of items that I'm not going to stick with one. There's a couple items that I really worked hard on that I was disappointed didn't go. There's a number of them, of course, so I think I got over 100 bills out there. But the trooper raise, the trooper bill, as I call it, the raise for the troopers was one that worked extremely hard on last session. Thought we had a way ahead this session, and we got derailed. I think we had it was set to go to committee the day we shut down. So we were set to go to committee, and we shut down the day before the committee hearing, and that was very disappointing. The troopers definitely, what is going to happen, just to lay this out for you, right? This year, they were supposed to have an academy of 32 troopers. They graduated 22. That means that outstate Minnesota and the stations, the trooper stations out here in outstate Minnesota, got shorted 10 troopers. So we're already running short. So with that, if we don't have a trooper academy this next January, that will mean that the next time, if we get the money for a trooper academy in the next budget cycle, we will have, the next time we'll have new troopers on is August of 22. And at that time, they're going to need 70 new troopers to fill the cars and the stations. And right now, we can't even fill a class of 32. There's no way they're going to fill a class of 70. It's just through attrition that they're going to end up being 70 troopers down. And the main reason is we're losing troopers. They're going out the door because of pay. People don't realize they can go and make $10,000 to $15,000 more just by going from the Trooper Academy and walking into Bloomington, Brooklyn Park, one of those other metro departments. They are probably number 25 or 26 in pay. So we need to address this situation. So that's one of the ones I really worked hard on, and is very disappointed that it didn't get across the deal. We got a piece of it. We got the study because management and budget has been dragging their feet for over a year on doing the study. So they've been slow rolling it. We've shifted gears and had the OLA do it, the Office of the Legislative Auditor, do this stuff. Thank you. Good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. Representative Tice?
I was the minority lead on the housing committee, and I was really encouraged when we had a lot of the folks who basically we would have somebody from like the state, county, and some of the folks from the Minnesota League of Cities helping on how do we get the cost of housing down, because we're significantly higher than our neighbors on all the borders. And even though everybody says, well, it's not me, it's got to be somebody, and we need to do a better job of figuring it out. But also, we're really short on workers right now because a lot of them left when we had the last recession and did not come back. Either they went and worked over in North Dakota, or they just decided to get different jobs. So we were really working hard with a lot of the stakeholders in the community with getting 16 and 17-year-olds to be able to come back to the job sites. One of the things that we saw when we had a remodeling company was every summer I would get, or actually May, we would get so many phone calls and folks stopping in saying, hey, can my son, and it was always sons, I wish we would have had more daughters, come and work for you this summer so they can see what they're interested in. And of course they were high school students. And the answer is always, you know, are they 18? Because we couldn't hire anybody unless they were 18. And it's just getting to be a bigger problem where we need to find those folks to come into the industry. And it was, you know, everything, the bill got dropped. I dropped the bill on the March 11th. And we basically didn't go anywhere after that. So there wasn't even time to see if we could get a quick hearing on it. And Jeff has it, Senator Jeff has it in the Senate, and it was just too short of a time to really get anything moving on it. But I hope that when we come back, you know, maybe we can get some talking about it, because especially now we're going to be needing folks. Contractors, builders were one of the essentials, so they really didn't stop working. But finding folks to work has just been such a hard thing to do, and it was very nice to have the input from the community and to work on that one together. So hopefully we'll see some more movement on that, but also just figuring out how we can get the costs of housing down so that we can get some first-time homeowner property being built. It's just really tough to do right now.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much for your comments. Representative Tim O'Driscoll.
Thank you. And I want to pick up where Representative Tice left off. One of the major priorities that the CMBA, the Central Minnesota Builders Association, has been pushing for a number of years is to allow for those who are 16 and 17 to be able to be introduced to the job site. And I was working very diligently with my counterparts. We thought we had all 6 area legislators on board with this. And the plan was that Senator Howe, because of his familiarity with the construction industry, would carry the bill in the Senate, and that Representative Dan Wolgamott, the majority member for the House from our area, was going to carry that bill after a number of meetings. And we came to find out that there was not as much commitment to that effort, and so Tama took that bill, as she said, and introduced it into the House on March 11th. What does that mean? It means that in an area right now that we already have difficulty finding people in the trades area, whether it's plumbing, whether it's being electricians, contractors, or skilled things that are used, or skilled labor that's used for inputs on improving properties and construction, They get passed over quite regularly in high school because there is no way for students to experience that and to explore those where there are in other areas. Interestingly enough, a 16 or 17-year-old could work at a fast food restaurant where there are many grills and fryers and different kinds of things where a student could, or a 16 or 17-year-old could get hurt or injured. And that was always one of the things that was represented to us. Oh, there's lots of moving parts and equipment on a construction site. Well, those folks are required to train these individuals in those roles that are not construction, but are in dangerous areas. Why can't we put a program in place to do the same thing for our 16 and 17-year-olds? If we're going to want to be able to get our water heaters fixed and our plumbing fixed and electrical issues resolved, we're going to have to continue to fill the pipeline. I know it seems like a long time ago, but we are short of workers in this state. Now, with 25% unemployment, you would say that's a hard one to believe. But as the economy begins to open up and people go back to work, we are going to experience those shortages again. And so I think that that is something that we need to stay vigilant on. I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. I do want to talk about a few things that were successful that I was involved with. Number one, we did do a liquor bill to allow bars and restaurants who did to-go food to be able to sell 6-packs and a bottle of wine. I was very, very instrumental in getting that through the House, the Senate, to the governor's desk. The elections bill to allow our elections to continue here in the state of Minnesota in August and November by allowing folks to be able to go to the polling place or to do a slightly expanded request of an absentee ballot if someone didn't want to go to the polling place, to get money appropriated to sanitize the polling places and to provide PPE and other kinds of safety equipment for the workers at these polling places. I also worked on the worker comp bill that Representative Wolgamott referred to, and I was brought in on the last minute by many caucuses to try to finally broker the deal on that for those workers that were mentioned earlier. However, there was no additional funding that was provided on that, and we're hoping to take that out of the $1.8 billion that we got from the federal government to deal with COVID-related issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Representative Wolgamott.
Well, the question is, what are things that you've worked on that did not get passed? Correct.
Correct. Something that did not happen that you worked on.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that came to mind for me is the bonding bill. It is disappointing that we didn't get it passed in regular session, but as we mentioned, hopefully we still have time and can still get that done. Another thing that I've been working on with Jerry and with Tama that is still, I believe, in play, and we can still advocate for, is a repeal of the June accelerated sales tax payment for certain construction businesses. This is something that we've worked on closely with John Peterson from Amcon Block. It really is a kind of a budget gimmick that makes our bottom line look better than it actually is, when in fact it's really hurting our construction businesses. The measures that they have to take to make that payment in an accelerated fashion, really, I don't think is fair. So we've been working on that. That's still in play. I'm really pushing to get that included in our tax bills, in the hope that we do have a tax bill. I appreciated the chance to work with my colleagues on that bill for 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds on construction sites. It's something that's close to my heart because I'm a high school football coach. So I'm out with with those guys all the time and know that a lot of them have to work to provide for their families and help their family's economic situation. I made very clear that I wanted to see the language of the bill before it got jacketed, have the chance to put my input in and get input from all the different groups and people that are affected by this, so that we could have a bill that would be able to make it through the House and be successful. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time to do that. I didn't get the opportunity to do that, but I am still committed to working with my colleagues and supporting 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, the guys I coach, the future of our community, giving them those opportunities. So I know that there's a lot of frustration on that, but I hope that my colleagues will still be willing to work with me on that really important issue going forward in the future. Another bill that I've been working on that was scheduled to be heard the very first day that we had the shutdown was a bill to modernize the growler cap. The Minnesota craft brewing industry is one of the fastest growing industries in the state. And it's really awesome. You know, we see it here in our community. We've got Beaver Island, Pantown Brewing, Bad Habit, Third Sea Brew House. And the way our laws are now is once you sell 20,000 barrels of beer per year, you have to stop selling growlers. And that really just kind of takes away an important source of revenue for our craft brewing businesses. So I had a bill to double that cap, to take it from 20,000 to 40,000. And really just, you know, that I think the last time they put that in was, I believe, in 2015, and the industry has just changed so much since then. So that's something that, you know, I really believe in the craft brewing industry and hope that we can do good work to support them.
Thank you, Representative Dan. You had me at craft beer right away, if that tells you anything about me. You know, it's hard not to hear laughter, but I know you're all laughing out there.
I had muted laughter.
Thank you. Next, we're going to Representative Sandra Erickson.
Well, something that I tried to accomplish this session was continuity of learning once the closure occurred, because our schools went to distance learning. And, you know, we have over 900,000 students enrolled in our public system, that's charter and districts. And I know that there were 2 weeks that the governor allowed for planning to get ready for distance learning, but distance learning is very complicated. And without the ability for all schools to be online, and that's not necessarily the best answer anyway, we need to look for flexibility. And so continuity of learning was a disappointment for me in that the majority did not pursue pathways to figure out how districts and charters could spend more time trying to figure out what's best for their students rather than going to a certain platform or website and turning it over basically to parents. And as I said earlier, you know, this has been a huge frustration for parents to understand how you teach at home, because basically they were becoming the teachers if there wasn't that interaction coming directly from the school. I think our high school students probably prevailed okay, but I think we're going to have a huge loss in learning for K-3 and probably even 4, 5, 6, our middle school level. So, you know, when we go into special sessions, if there's anything done in education, we've got to look at flexibility. And so my concern was based on offering a more innovative ideas. And I like what Representative Driscoll was talking about for our 16 and 17-year-olds. Through my plan for innovation, districts and charters can form partnerships among themselves or with industry or with colleges such as our tech colleges to strive to get to those points that we have made some progress in, but need to make further progress in getting our students into these skill areas, the trades areas. And, you know, that's not going to happen unless we really empower the districts and charters to have that innovative focus and move on with being able to address the needs of our students in learning, but also in their futures. So, you know, I'll continue to work on that area. It was a disappointment for me, but I know, you know, that when you're in the minority, you have to work from behind the scenes and within the scenes. And I was grateful that the majority did include, you know, some of my amendments for consideration. They didn't pass, but at least, you know, they listened to the debate, and I'm grateful for that and want to continue to work in that area. So that's basically what I have to say, other than, you know, there's probably not going to be any new spending in this upcoming session. In fact, I think we're going to have to deal with some issues on budgeting for districts because they probably overspend. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Next, we're going to Representative Damuth.
Thank you. A couple of the things that were already mentioned that I was a little bit disappointed that didn't go through were that 16 and 17-year-old kids being able to work on the construction sites. As you know, being involved in the education committees, we know that those students are participating in programs within their schools, already doing construction. Rocori has a Rocori Build program. I know Tech has a program. So giving a chance for those students to expand their opportunities or learn new opportunities is priority. So I won't belabor that piece, but one of the projects that I was working on, a bill, House File 3508, was a dental loan forgiveness program, or the general practice dental residency program. Basically works like the rural physicians program. During the work that I did last summer and realizing our need for dental care out in greater Minnesota, sometimes we've got residents that are driving or having to commute long distances to get the dental care that they need. We know also when dental care is not provided in a timely manner, that puts a lot of strain on our emergency rooms, things that could already be taken care of in regular care. And so I started working with the Dental Association, getting more information, finding out that we had students that were actually losing days of school because dental issues. And so I put together a bill. It did not get a hearing because COVID, but still will continue that work. I had talked with Senator Scott Jensen. He was going to be carrying that in the Senate. It did not get introduced because, again, our session went quite differently. But I'll continue that work. I think that's a valid work to do. I think it is something that people wouldn't realize off the top how important it really is, but also our communities that are going to be attracting new dental care providers as some of our long-term dentists are retiring or looking to maybe want to sell their practices. That happened in my community here in Richmond. Had a great conversation with our new dentist, Dr. Spoden. And I think it's valid work that needs to be done and will benefit our whole state. So I will continue that work again next year.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Representative Lisa. Appreciate it. And Senator Jerry Ralph, your comments.
Well, thank you. Excuse me. I guess a couple things. First of all, we got to get Minnesota open back up. I mean, a lot of questions have been asked, and I think at this point in time, I think we all know that this is the issue, and we've got to do it safely. And we've got to let businesses show that they can operate safely, and then let the people choose. I think people will make good choices. They will go where it's safe, and they won't go where it isn't. So that's the first thing that I want to say about just, I'm disappointed. One of the big things I want to push is the tax bill. We need that tax bill. It will be the engine that will give businesses and individuals the opportunity to rebuild from this crisis. Section 179 will help businesses with major equipment. The June early or accelerated sales tax, it's temporary in the bill. I want to see it permanent because actually as a budgetary measure, it would be a good thing. Yeah, it hurts in the first cycle, but right down the road, then you get the money back. I don't want to get too far into that. I do want to talk about a couple of bills that I worked on that I was very disappointed that we basically ran out of money. The primary one is I'm very heavily invested in trying to help the disabled and the disability community. Right now, PCAs are probably the lowest paid health worker, or are the lowest paid health worker in the business. I've had a bill for 2 years that I've been trying to get across the finish line, which will change the rate framework on how we compensate PCAs and their agencies. That was teed up to go this year, and when we had this disaster, of course, that went out the door. It's fairly expensive, and I know that, so that's a problem. I did try at the last minute to get a temporary rate increase for those PCA workers, and again, it's still there. It was taken in finance and laid over possible inclusion. It could be taken up again. It's got a modest price tag, but it would give about 75 days of increased pay to those people who are really doing the major work for the people who need them. They're basically their lifeblood. They're their air. If you can't get out of bed in the morning, you can't do much of anything in the community. Many of the people who have disabilities, once they are able to get out and about, they work, they provide valuable input into the community, and it's a better quality of life for them. So that's been a very important issue that I've been trying to work on and push. I guess the bonding bill, obviously, we've talked about that. I've talked about getting that $1.8 billion in federal money out. That has got to get out. That will pump money into the community immediately. So I guess that's about, there's some others, but that's about where I am on that. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for this, and thank you to the chamber for hosting this.
Great. Timing's everything, Senator Jerry, so thank you. Next, we're going to go to the chat. Chat has a couple of common questions that we think we need to ask, and Laura will combine a couple and ask one question, and this will be part of the lightning round. So you will have 1 minute to answer. I will call you out. Jeff Howe, you will not be first, I guarantee it. Take it away, Laura, with the question.
Okay, so some of you are already seeing the questions in the chat about unemployment and the bonus checks and stuff like that. So the first question was just when do we foresee that bonus check going away and getting people back to work or getting them encouraged to start looking for work again? And then Tammy, said that there's a huge challenge ahead of us because of the stimulus. Job seekers are expecting higher wages to return to work because they have been paid more on unemployment. Meanwhile, they haven't taken the opportunity to increase their skills to earn a higher wage. Can you address that? Can you talk to that at all?
So we'll take this as a 1 minute comment of what you just heard from Laura, and we will go ahead and start with Representative Lisa Damuth.
Thank you. I have heard from businesses in my district saying, we're ready to have people come back to work, or one of my businesses, Staying Precision, set up to do personal protective equipment in partnership with another business. Their problem was they had people getting the $600 bonus, part of that stimulus, and saying nobody wants to come back to work. As you will hear, I'm sure, from some of my colleagues too, we know that on unemployment, when you are offered a job, you need to either take that job or lose your unemployment benefits. And so that's something that as employers, we can make sure that our employees are doing that. I don't have the exact date in front of me when that is going to stop, but I know it has created a huge challenge. And Tammy, I think it was you that said, our employees haven't done anything to increase their skills during this time. That is something as employers, we can be encouraging people to what our resources are. Is it through the technical knowledge? Are there other opportunities that we can provide for people to increase their skills? Because a fair wage paid to fair work is what we need to do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to go to Representative O'Driscoll, please.
Thank you. The $600 bonus has created a number of problems, as you can well imagine. Our jobs have shifted from lawmakers to helping constituents over the last 10 weeks since the COVID events have hit our state pretty hard. And one of the things I hear continually from employers are, I want to offer my job back. I want to offer the job back to an individual now that we're considered critical and we can open, but they say, hold on to my job for 4 months until I can get my bonus unemployment because I make more on unemployment than I do in the workforce. And they were calling me and say, can they do this? And I say, they certainly can decline coming back to work, but you can, as the employer, notify DEED, the Department of Economic and Employment Development, that you have offered the job back and that those individuals have declined, and then they would cease receiving benefits. That provision has never changed. And so I tell employers that they really want to make sure that employees are aware of that, because something that we don't know at this point from an employer's perspective, will they be assessed back for employees who have had unemployment benefits paid out? And those of you who have had unemployment in your businesses know what I'm talking about. It's an increase in the tax that you will be asked to pay. So in an attempt to try to manage that, I encourage employers to make sure they have that conversation and follow up with DEED.
Great recommendations. Representative Sandra Erickson.
Well, I echo what Representative Driscoll just said. In addition to that, I think it's important that we understand that when the $600 bonus ends, we're going to have a lot of people, I think, looking for work. And they have to know that that's what's going to happen. This is not going to be ongoing as far as I know. So, so what Representative Driscoll said in, noting that if you're offered the job back because now, your business is again open, that notification has to be given to DEED that that person declined and those benefits need to stop. So I think we need to be a little tough in that area because we want people to work, and I know people want to work. It's just that, this COVID hit us, and I think everyone is just living under a little bit of fear. So we've got to motivate them to know that, work is good for the soul, the body, and the mind, and let's get back on track and, work toward prosperity again.
Thank you. Representative Tama Tice, comments?
Along the same lines, we've all been receiving a lot of emails about this. How do we deal with it? And so I think we checked in with our staff and got some accurate information. UI ratings will not change because of COVID. So at least businesses aren't going to get dinged for all the unemployment. But again, just to make sure, I asked too, what happens if somebody declines to come back? And they're basically, they lose their job and their benefits. So it's such a tough rock and a hard place because businesses are going to come back with a lot less revenue to work with. And so there aren't going to be there's going to be very few raises. They just don't have that revenue because they've lost so much. So it's going to have to be a good working relationship between employee and employer that, hang in with me while we get this done. Yes, you got, a nice bonus, but that's not going to happen now. So, we need your help in getting back to where we were before.
Thank you. Senator Jeff Howe, your response.
Well,
He's muted and gone. All right, all right, so we have to move on. We will move on then to Representative Dan Walden. Wait a minute, he's back. Jeff, can you answer that? Can you give us your 1-minute comment? You're muted.
Thanks. My neighbor decided to mow his lawn, so I had to relocate.
Well,
Here's the deal. I will tell you that I just heard the feds say that you can, if you offer your job back to those employees, that same thing that Representative O'Driscoll said, that they get offered the job, the unemployment benefits stop. So I think that was a big boost. I hope that Minnesota DEED decides to take that to heart. And if we push that issue, I think that'll solve some of that problem of getting those employees back to work. So I think everything else has been said.
Great, thank you. Senator Jerry Ralph.
yeah, I just want to make a general observation about this whole situation. And that is that between the PPP, the federal unemployment increase, we've created some unintended consequences. And here's the problem. If you've got an employee who's fairly critical to your enterprise, and you offer them the job back and they don't come back, they decide to say no, the penalty to them is really very, very, very great. And it puts an employer in a real difficult position. Do I turn somebody in because I want them to come back? So do I raise their salary so that it matches what they're getting? That's just my general comment. I think that, yeah, we pretty much everything else that's been said, I would echo, but I wanted to make that observation. I've talked to several of my people in my district that they're stuck. Either hire somebody and pay them more in order to continue with their PPP, or they don't, and they lose that possibility of getting that loan forgiven. So I mean, this is a whole series of unintended consequences that I think we really have to think through as we go forward.
Thank you, and take us home, Representative Waldemar.
All right. Well, I don't have too much to add. My colleagues put it pretty well and laid out the facts. Other than just say, I really want to ask everyone that's on this call, as our economy finds a new normal, as our workforce finds a new normal, as our businesses adjust to a new normal, stay in touch. Let us know how things are going. This is an ever-changing situation, and the more that you can be in touch with us, letting us know how it's impacting your business, the better advocates that we're going to be able to be. So thanks. I've learned a lot just from hearing these perspectives, and hope we can continue that.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, as you can look at the clock, we're coming upon 9:30. We have about 5 minutes left. That was our last question. And so I first of all want to thank all of the representatives and senators for thank you for your thoughtful comments and your responses, and showing us kind of the inside of who you are with your answers, and not really what you do, but who you are there out at the Capitol, and thank you for it. So as a last question, but I would like to turn it over to one more presenter. Mr. Dave Borgert has one more comment.
Thanks, Bernie. We'd like to just finish on behalf of the Government Affairs Advisory Committee at the Chamber, extending our thanks again to the sponsors who are showing on your screen. I won't read through them, but I will tell you that as I look at this list, so it's going to sound like a promotion, we have hopes of going back to Washington in September, either with the Minnesota Chamber or independently. And I have to say that as I look at this list, the majority of these folks have been involved in that. Just one more element of a very robust government affairs activity at the St. Cloud Area Chamber. So again, thank you to all of these sponsors who are underwriting this program, both for their financial support, which is absolutely critical, and also for being very involved in the process on a month-to-month basis. So with that, on behalf of the Government Affairs Advisory Committee, we extend thanks to our sponsors, and again, to everyone who participated in this morning's event.
Thank you, Dave. And I'd just like to echo his comments. Sponsorships are technically partnerships. So I thank you all for your partnership to keep us going forward and keep us moving forward. So thank you to all our partners that have helped us in our sponsorships. I also like to do one more call out to Tammy Berry. Congratulations on the Diversity Award, well deserved. And I also want to thank the St. Cloud Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this award. It's the third year. So thank you for doing that and recognizing individuals like Tammy who make our community stronger and smarter, and who we are with diversity. And last but not least, our panelists, which the legislators. I couldn't ask for a better group. And your smiles, you're much better looking than the Brady Bunch. But I would like to personally thank each of you. Representative Tammy Tice, thank you so much. Senator Jerry Ralph, thank you so much. Representative Dan Wogemuth, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Lisa Damuth, thank you so much. Senator Jeff Howe, thank you so much. Representative Sandra Erickson, really thank you so much. I didn't get to see your face, but I got a picture in my mind from the last time we met. And Representative Tim O'Driscoll, thank you so very much. It's been very inspiring to listen to everything and being here all alone with Laura when we usually have a packed house and I can see everyone and we can personally talk. So I really want to thank you. There's no way to alter the past. And when we started this, and when you started this in February, who would have ever been able to call out where we're at today? You can't alter the past, but we can definitely work together in the future. And we need to work together at this time. There's too much friction, too much infighting, too much TV. No, stop watching that TV, guys. And this is my editorial. Of course, it's not supported by the St. Cloud Chamber of Commerce. It's Bernie Perryman talking from my heart to a bunch of who's, who I really admire and love and supports our community. And we will be altered a lot. We're going to do, there's a brand new norm in small business, big business, and government, you name it. But together, we will get through this together without making it any political situation, but all that we all want to succeed and have a great community, stronger together. So I thank you very much for being here today. I look forward to the next one, and I give you a virtual heart and hug, and I can't wait to give you a real one soon. Thank you all for today. Have a great weekend. Very good.